So if you haven't heard, this is a Q&A session. So if you want this office hours to last longer than 5 minutes, I suggest you put in a question.
We need
and
more Qs.
We will answer it. Well, probably very poorly, but we will answer your question if you get it in now.
If you put your Qs in the queue, we will A them.
Q's in the queue. So what if Q was in a queue for a Q?
I don't know. Probably the Borg would show up later and they'd have to fight.
Yeah.
Q. And then, I don't know who would win that one.
Welcome to the afterlife.
Did Q and the Borg ever interact? I don't remember an episode where they did.
Who do you think introduced the Federation to the Borg?
Q.
Q did.
What a jerk. I was trying to think of an episode where like Q and the Borg were going at it, and I don't think there is one.
No, because he would just snap his fingers, and then the Borg would be in the palm of his hand, and then.
Yeah, but I mean, think of all the times he tried to do that to the Starship Enterprise, and it didn't work out for him.
Remember, he's very much like an all-powerful imp, right? I mean, he's
very impish.
Just poking, and just seeing what happens. See if he can get underneath their skin. He has very much an affinity for the human race and all that. He doesn't want to see them destroyed because that would ruin his enjoyment of provoking them. So.
I really wish that there were more Next Generation episodes, specifically Next Generation episodes where Q and the Borg were doing things.
What would be really interesting is that if you have the type of storytelling that the Next Generation did, but in the storytelling that we do now, right? So since Buffy, you have this because these story arcs that last the season, or if you're Game of Thrones, these story arcs that last the entire series. It would be
seasons.
I know, right? It would be really cool that if you have the Star Trek Next Generation and the small form stories that they used to do, like Lower Decks and things like that, that kind of really go into these character stories, and have that go into like a season-long arc, right? Where they, at the end of the episode, they don't hit the continuity reset button.
Right.
Where, they went through this big, long thing, and that really didn't change him at all, right? Or we dealt with this, and Troy had this romance, and then all of a sudden the guy left the ship, and that was it. And nothing changes.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I mean, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I find it hard. I find that it's harder to really build up characters into something when you don't have that. Like, there's no character progression from like point A to point B. You just have like this character that has always existed as they are, and
you just put them in different situations, things like
that.
And
like, but like that's the stopping point. Yeah,
Deep Space Nine started to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
With the Dominion War, but that was really towards the end of all that stuff, and
they yanked it.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I just didn't care at that point because I was done with it.
But then like plot lines would come back in Next Generation. Like all of a sudden you are forced to care again. Like they would have like this like recurring antagonist. And you'd be like, oh, I have to give a crap now.
So there is a question. There's a question that someone asked. Speaking of Star Trek, have you guys seen the Star Trek tabletop RPG with the Borg cube? I have not, but there is a new Star Trek-based RPG show on Geek and Sundry on Twitch that is called Shield of Tomorrow. I think that's what it's called. They're in their second episode, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They have a full set, so that it looks like they're on actually a ship. They're wearing actual TV quality uniforms, and it's I like watching or just listening to RPGs. I usually don't watch, but just listen to the stories and things like that because it's a very much improv type thing, and that was very well done. I recommend that. That's nice. A lot of fun. It's on tomorrow night, I think 10 o'clock Eastern.
Well, that's past my bedtime, but
said the guy with a D&D shirt on.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I guess it's time to start answering questions, yeah?
I guess, like work type stuff.
Oh, man.
Over here.
I don't want to.
Eric doesn't want it. He used all of his energy at 8 a.m. this morning, and he is done.
All of my energy at 5 in the morning. My tank was empty before the sun even came up. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? Anyway.
So how many cups of coffee have you had?
None. You know why? Because here's why I'm an idiot. I make cold brew coffee because I can't stand hot drinks. And I think that's a normal thing. I hate hot drinks. I hate warm drinks. I like, cold drinks, unless it's scotch and then wine and room temperature is fine. But so I make cold brew coffee, and sometimes I am really bad at remembering to make more when I've finished a pot. And the trouble with cold brew is that when you run out, it's like 8 hours until you have more, because you have to stick grinds into the thing and let it soak and then filter drain it out into the container. So I had to make emergency lapsang souchong tea to drink this morning, and my stomach is still gurgling because black tea is very acidic.
Which is why but it's less acidic than coffee, which is why I drink it, frankly. I had my Earl Grey this morning. It was hot. Tea, Earl Grey hot, and it was amazing.
I don't know where you get your Earl Grey from, but like Scottish breakfast tea, English breakfast tea, lapsang, there are a whole bunch of black teas that are just super, super acidic, like way worse than coffee. I can drink coffee on an empty stomach and not flinch, but like there are some black teas, especially ones my wife drinks. I'll take like 2 sips and be like, oh,
coffee's making
eating me inside.
All right, so it's 2 minutes after the start time. Why don't we get started on the first question?
That was a much more interesting thing to talk about.
It was, and I'll sit here and talk teas with you all day. But
I guess
if Brent was here, he'd be like, "Well, let's get to some questions." It's like SQL Server. It's like, but wait, I do away from the keyboard podcast, and this is kind of what I do.
I guess that is what these good people didn't pay for, so we might as well get started.
Exactly.
All right. Stephen wants to know, where's the scarf? The scarf is back put away because it is 90 degrees and I'm not wearing a scarf all day. Thank you for checking though, Stephen. That is my favorite scarf, and not coincidentally my only scarf. Let's see here. Let's get to a question. James says, thank you for your DBA fundamentals videos. You're welcome, James. It's a pleasure recording them. I have to re-record one on setting up all the Hallengren scripts this week, so there will be another one coming down the pipe in the near future. Tashale wants to know, can I trust sys.dmdb index usage stats to drop indexes which are not used? What else resets its readings other than a SQL restart? Well, there are a whole bunch of wonky things that happened in SQL Server 2000 and certain versions of SQL Server 2012 and 2014, where the behavior is different between service packs and CUs. There are certain ones, like I think almost all of 2012 up until SP3 and probably 2014 up until SP1, where if you rebuild an index, then that will clear out all the usage stats. And up until now on many versions and editions, if you add an index or drop an index, it will also reset some things. So be very careful with that one, especially because even if your system has been up for a long time, you may have rebuilt indexes, you may have added or dropped indexes, and there also might be really important indexes sitting around that just don't get used frequently. So one thing that I always caution people about is, always remember to disable your indexes, don't drop them, because if some query comes along that runs, for the super important guy who sits in an office, that runs every 3 months or 6 months at some quarterly or, whatever financial report of something, and there's a very important index for that query that you just disabled because it had one use in the last 3 months, well, you could be in trouble. So make sure you don't drop indexes. Make sure that any indexes you choose, you just disable them. One really good way to trend that kind of usage is by using SP-Blitz Index. It's a free script to rewrite. It's available over at firstresponderkit.org. If you head over there, you can download it for free and run it for free on as many servers as you want for free, and it will give you the usage stats, and you can copy it out to an Excel file and kind of keep track of usage over time. You can also persist it to a table if you're that kind of person, depending. I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we call those people hoarders.
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
Or hoarder. I don't recall.
I don't know. Mordor Hoarders? The Hoarders of Mordor? That would be a good show. The Hoarders of Mordor. Just orcs with like a pile of bones. Like, it's mine.
just this random weapon and armor just thrown all over the place.
Oh, yeah, it's like my office. It's just garbage everywhere.
It's just body parts, Maybe they categorize them, and they're just in different places.
Yeah, right. Be weird. James asks, or says and then asks, my prod server has 12 CPUs and I have my max stop set to 8 and cost threshold set to 65. However, I still see CX packet has 49% of the overall weight stats on my server. Why? James, you should know better than to tune weight stats by percentage. You've been to Brent's classes. You know these things. You don't tune things by what percentage they are. You should revisit some of Brent's lessons on that. For the benefit of the group, though, it is absolutely natural to have parallelism on your server, unless you're running SharePoint or something else that forces you to set max stop to 1. Trying to stamp out all evidence or all percentages of parallelism is not a terribly good idea. You still have parallel queries on your server because you still have queries that with the serial plan has a cost of greater than 65, and those queries go parallel because the parallel plan was cheaper. That's why you still have CX packet weights. Who cares if it's 49% of the weights on your server? It all depends on what the total weights are. Other fun things like that. Let's see here. Jack asks, do you have clients successfully using RCSI with Relativity or Tunnel Vision? Well, I'll be dead honest with you. I've never heard of Tunnel Vision. For Relativity, though, no. And the reason for that is because every single Relativity query behind the scenes is generated with no-lock hints. And when you have query level hints like that, they override database level settings like snapshot or read-committed snapshot isolation. So it wouldn't do any good to turn those on and overwhelm TempDB with all of the modifications that come in, only to have all your read queries use no-lock anyway. You would really need to do a lot of app redesign in order to benefit from having no luck on there. A long time ago when I was a DB8 and e-discovery shop, I opened up a ticket with Relativity and I was like, hey, how come you guys don't use RCSI instead of just no-lock hints? And at the time when the app was designed, and is still true to this day, many shops that run Relativity do not have a DBA or a DBA team or anyone really paying close or good attention to those servers in any way. If you install SQL Server and you click next a whole bunch of times on 2012, 2008, 2008 R2, all the older versions that were around when Relativity was first getting started, you didn't have all those cool options and features kick in that you do with 2016 and up. So you wouldn't have the installer going and creating multiple TempDB data files for you. You didn't have anyone adhering to server best practices by not putting TempDB on the C drive, just, regular DBA stuff. So the amount of work that has to go into supporting something like an optimistic isolation level is not trivial to a shop that does not have the correct staff for it. So no is the answer, and that's the reason why. Fun stuff, right? Fun stuff, right, Richie?
If you say so.
Are you enthralled yet? Are you riveted?
I actually, someone put a link out for the collector's edition of Star Trek Adventures, the RPG, and it's like $500. It's amazing, but it's like $500. And no.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Can I expense it? Can I expense it? That'd be great.
If it's office equipment, I don't see why not. I mean, what's left on your hardware budget? You might as well.
Not much.
I got like $500 left. I'm thinking about getting one of those desk risers so that I can have like a fake standing desk. But I just don't know how that's gonna work with the wire. I'm like kind of terrified of it. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hit the button, everything's just gonna tip over and unplug, and it's gonna be.
Well, what you could do is that you could get a mount for your HOS and mount it underneath the tabletop.
For my what?
For your HOS machine, and like mount the machine underneath the desk, and that way you could raise it, lower and raise it.
I think I'm just gonna get real strong and lift the desk up whenever I need to stand. think that might be.
That's too close to a table flip, man. You know, you're just like, ah, just finish the job.
All right. Stephen asked a question about availability groups, which I will answer to the worst of my ability. If always on sync goes down, does it automatically change to async and just start filling the log, or does it go down? There are a lot of weird things that happen when an availability group goes down that are different between 2012 and 2014 and 2016. So in 2012, it's like if one goes down, the whole thing goes down if quorum gets messed up. On other versions, it could stay online. But either way, I think what you're asking is if it stays online and it stays in good shape. But the answer is kind of no. You want to get that. You want to get things up and running as soon as possible. You also want to make sure that log backups, if it does fail over, you want to make sure you get log backups going on the new primary. If the primary just goes down and you're working off replica as well, you should work on getting that primary backup or making one of the replicas the new primary so that your AG is complete. That's all I have to say about that. If Tara were here, she'd probably have a better answer. That's my patchwork answer.
Yeah, definitely more complete, sir.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either, but it's definitely better than my answer.
What is parameter sniffing and how does it work? God, well, that's the funny thing is that it doesn't if it's parameter sniffing. When it's parameter.
Yeah. No, it works that it breaks, right?
Mm. Yeah, so parameter sniffing is when you have some code that accepts parameters. And on first compile, that code executes and compiles with those parameters. And then on subsequent executions, that code repeats as if it's received the same parameters, even if the parameters are different. So that is parameter sniffing, and that's how it works. If you have a store procedure, and let's say it takes a date, let's say it takes a start date, and you say I want everything, or let's just say it takes a date for an equality, and you run your store procedure, and it brings back everything in the table that is equal to that date, and that date was 2017-7/19, right? So that's today, and then the next time that store procedure runs. It runs and it runs as if with the date you pass in is 2017-7/18. So that was yesterday. And all of a sudden you have to bring back a lot more rows because you had a lot more time to insert data yesterday. Let's say you had 1 million rows on the 18th and you only have about 20 rows on the 19th. So that store procedure that compiled and ran expecting to get 20 values back, all of a sudden has to go and pull 1 million values back. And when it pulls that 1 million values back, the execution plan that it uses to do that may be inadequate because 1 million is a lot more than 20. So you may get a whole different, so it may be a case where where a different execution plan would have been more appropriate for a different value. Say you, for a small amount of rows, you do a key lookup, you use a non-clustered index, you do a key lookup, you get some columns back from the clustered index. For the million rows, it just may make more sense to scan the whole clustered index and get rows back that way. So it's all out there in fun land. Because it happens every single week, because we talk about it every single week. I'm going to stick the link up there for it. So, Erland,
Summerskog.
Slow location. Fast SSMS. So the man himself, or himself, depending on how you like to talk, has a blog post called Slow in the Application, Fast in SSMS. And what it does is attempt to explain to you the parameter sniffing in biblical blog post fashion. So I would, if you are really interested, and that is not where your question ends, I would read that entire blog post and see where it gets you. If you have more specific questions, come back and ask.
So if I did run into some parameter sniffing, what type of things would I do to fix it? See, this is what they call in the business a softball.
Ooh,
hit the softball.
Well, okay. Well, if I was really crappy at my job, I'd restart SQL Server. If I was a little bit less crappy at my job, I would probably clear the entire plan cache. If
Still
I was
crappy.
slightly less crappy than that, I would probably clear that plan out of the plan cache. If I was a little bit less crappy, I might recompile or throw a recompile hint on the stored procedure or the statement in the stored procedure that's causing my parameter sniffing. If I was much less crappy, I might take a look at my indexes and try to figure out what a good index is to take bad choices away from the optimizer regardless of the value that gets passed in. So perhaps making that non-cluster index covering or rearranging the key values in a non-clustered index to make it more apt to be used no matter what. There are all sorts of things that you can do down the line, including rewriting the query to need less columns to begin with. Do all that sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, what I found with parameter sniffing is sometimes the answer is a recompile.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just doesn't run frequently enough, and you throw a recompile on it, and it's just not going to tax the system, and you're good to go. Sometimes it is the index. I mean, you just I've always, when doing tuning, I've always like, okay, what's my output goal, right?
Yep.
Because you could get this like lost in tuning land, right?
Yeah.
And just get, oh, I need to get it further down. But what's your exit criteria? So you say, hey, the exit criteria for me is that it's got to run another second, and it doesn't raise these metrics up this much. And when you hit that, you leave.
Yeah.
And you go on to the next problem.
That sounds like a good plan to me. So there is an entity framework question.
Oh, yes.
I think you should take. Will I get a link for Kevin?
Yes. So the question is, hi, hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Well, it's hi with an ellipsis afterwards, so it's more like, hi. I know you.
We have an entity framework application running on SQL Server 2014 Enterprise. I wanted to know if it's possible to set the transaction isolation level at the connection string level. So I don't believe so. I don't believe that is the case. I've never tried it. I don't recall ever seeing any parameters in the connection string for setting the isolation level. I'm pretty sure on EF6, the default isolation level is read committed snapshot. Don't quote me on that. I haven't done much with transactions in Entity Framework proper. A lot of the transactions I do is essentially that I've done in my career have been in queries themselves. And when the times I have used transactions, it's been in code in an Entity Framework. I don't believe that is the case.
I think I've seen people use, specifically for snapshot isolation, a separate connection pool that is set up to use that isolation level rather than going with a default.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to do that because I'm dumb at Entity Framework.
Yeah, and you could totally do that. Say, hey, for these queries, go and run this isolation level, right? But you need to know what those queries are. It's not going to be
you need to know that ahead of time.
I change the application. Now I could totally be wrong. Go to Stack Overflow, ask the question there. That's probably a better place for it. You could go to hashtag EFHelp. I think Julie Learman monitors that one. So as far as I recall, I don't think you can. And if you need to set that kind of stuff, you need to change code. So there's not an easy, let me just change a connection string and not the application. I'm pretty sure you're going to need to change the application.
Or just throw it out and start a new one. That's what I'd do.
Entity Framework, it's not broken. The way we use it as developers could be broken.
It's usually horribly broken.
Yes, and there's nothing different than what we see with SQL Server, right? We see all these bad implementations, and we see all the breaking of best practices, and we see all this crazy stuff going on. Especially here at Brent Ozar Unlimited, because we see all these different things, and maybe you've actually walked into a new organization and you see, well, why would you do this, and why is your backups here, and where are your logs, and blah 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 blah. Well, it's the same thing in developer land. We just don't understand our tools, and we just start throwing things out there. And hey, look, it works in my machine, it must work out there in production.
Well, the worst part about it is the overwhelming pressure to ship often gets in the way of doing things correctly, designing things correctly, right, making sure that you have the right query, saying, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't a good idea to run this 10,000 times a minute. Perhaps we should, wait 3 or 4 weeks before we ship this and, invest in some sort of caching layer for this query instead. But, that sort of stuff all kind of gets shoveled by the wayside because you have some jerk sitting up top who just wants you to ship to make someone happy.
Let's get it out. We'll mark it as technical debt. We'll deal with that down the road. Let's just go. And, the problem may be bigger than you think because, we don't think very hard on the problem and what could happen down the road. So we don't take a look at the risk and do a risk assessment and say, hey, if we don't do this, it's going to cost us this much money down the road because we don't equivalate risk to dollars. And that's been a lot of problems with some of the projects that I've seen is that no risk assessment to dollars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
hard to do, frankly.
The thing about technical debt is it is a lot like regular debt, and everyone wants to spend more instead.
Yeah, well, the other thing about technical debt is that it's very hard to quantify, right?
Yeah, totally.
I can't put a dollar amount to it because it's all, it's technical debt, and how much would that cost to fix, and how much would that cost to throw it down the path? Nobody does that, right? Nobody says, if we make this technical decision, how much would that cost us in the long run? Because we don't equate dollars to technology outside of I need to purchase something.
Yeah, or it's like, how much hardware can I mortgage to pay off my technical debt?
That's right.
But if I buy 512 more gigs of RAM, the problem goes away. Oh, all right. Guess I'm going to buy 500.
From a developer perspective, there are certain things that we could do to kind of alleviate some of that, right? I write unit tests. Okay, if I change something, it'll let me know if that is, if I have the right test and all that other good stuff. But even writing something simple as, in 2017 is writing unit tests, that gets kicked down the curb too is, we'll just do that later. Yeah. And, now we've got 15 people testing this thing, and we make one change and everything breaks, it's what you're going to get.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess for me, the thing is, it's like, okay, you want to write all these unit tests, but man, with a database where you have to have so many things to come up with a condition or to reenact a condition to make sure that it's tough for some things. There are some really hard conditions to replicate. Like, I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not saying that there's not some laziness behind it, but there's like this perfect storm of like, okay, how do I replicate this particular low memory condition with these parallel queries doing this, and like making all that, like figuring out how to write a single repeatable test for that once just to unit test this one thing over. It's just like, man.
Yeah, unit testing queries exponentially harder than unit testing code. It's because we're dealing with data. Now I got to worry about setting up my data. I got to worry about running, and I got to worry about what my result is. And doing all that is so much harder than saying, I'm just going to go ahead and fake this and mock this and do this, and now I've got a result. I was, when I'm writing unit tests, and I've never done it with queries because it is so stupid hard.
Data's too much of a melty man.
I was on one project where I did it, and we actually had to write our own unit test kind of module to do that because there was no tool out there to do this kind of thing. But it's still, you had to load the data, run it, and then you had to see what the expectation is, and you had to do that and it took forever. It's one of those things. I still follow the 80-20 rule with writing unit tests. Hey, if I could get 80% of the stuff and the other 20 is going to take me another day or two or whatever, I'm just going to punt on that stuff, and I'm only going to get the stuff that, hey, it's going to get the main course on it, right? And let's keep moving forward. And if we run into a problem, I'm going to write a unit test for it, and we're just going to keep moving forward.
Right. So it's like the main goal is to get things working, and then you can catch the edge cases on down the line.
Yeah, I don't get paid to write unit tests. I write unit tests because I get paid to verify my functionality, not because I want all these unit tests to do that. Writing unit tests is not fun.
No, it doesn't look like fun. I have a thing to get to in GitHub where I need to write code or store procedures that will inflict upon a server various warnings that Blitzcache and Blitz Query Store will flag. And I'm dreading that because there are so many things where it's just like, it's going to be like, I'm going to, like a lot of these store procedures are going to have to like add and drop indexes or do something else awful or run for a long time to get these things to happen. Like there's some stuff that you see out in the wild where you're like, oh, I can easily write code that will catch that and I can do that on the spot because this condition exists right here where I need it. But recreating that condition sucks. Databases are hard. People should get paid more for working.
I know.
You hear that, Brent? People should get paid more for working with data.
I'm very happy, sir. Please. May I have another day? Here's a we'll wrap this thing up here. So here's an interesting question. Can begin and end transaction encapsulating DMLs help avoid deadlocking?
No. No, it can't. It won't. No, it won't help with that. You will have, because you will just have things wrapped in a begin and end, begin train and end train. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Won't help you. There is another question.
That question fell flat.
Yeah, there was just no.
I thought there was more of a story there, but I guess not.
No. Begin train and end train. All that does is, I mean, that'll isolate a single transaction. It's not going to help you with other transactions. No. Let's see here. Our Idera SQL monitoring tool and services recently... Dude, open a ticket with Idera. Do I look like Idera tech support? Call it. You pay them money. Probably.
Now that you mention it.
Probably pay the money. You should open a support ticket with them. I have no idea why Idera would stop working. I have never used Idera, so I couldn't tell you there. Couldn't tell you on that one. Let's see here. Uday wants to ask, do you have any recommendations on how to test storage performance? And that's a good one. Crystal Diskmark is a good tool. It's free. And also Disk Speed, DISKSPD, is a good tool as well. Those are the ones that I would go to there. Let's see here. Graham asks,
is there a? I'm gonna cut you off, man.
All right, fine.
Let's cut you off.
Good.
Is there an asset management tool besides MAP that report on SQL Server versions and their end of life dates in an environment? Oh, look at that. So now you cut me off. Did I cut you off? Oh, look at that. We're just in a big pile of
streams.
Don't cross the streams, Ray.
It's a bad idea. So I think Redgate has some stuff like that. Redgate has some tools that do that. They're not free though, at least not for more than 2 weeks, or like not if you want to get all sorts of stuff out of them. I don't know the names of all the Redgate tools because they have a new one like every week, and I'm not sure what they do past like SQL Prompt. There was like SQL Octopus and SQL Lighthouse and SQL Kraken, and I don't know, like SQL Titanic. I don't know. There was just but they have tools out there that will do server discovery, I want to say. So I would go and check out El Red Gato, the red cat.
I know Kendall Van Dyke wrote a tool in PowerShell that does some of that stuff.
I want to say I tried to use that at my last job to find stuff out when I first started, and I did not have good luck with that. I don't know if he keeps it up to date.
It's called SQL PowerDoc. That's what it's called. Try it. It's free. I mean, it's only going to cost you your time, right? And if it gets you what you want, then you can move on to some of the paid versions. Or if it doesn't, you go and move some paid versions. But I know he put a lot of work into it. I remember him talking about that like way back. I'm doing this power thing, and I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I just wonder what SQL Map does differently than PowerShell. Like it probably queries the same things, you would think.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that he was a consultant at the time, and he's moved on to Microsoft since. Yeah. But he was a consultant, and he would go into environments, and he would have no idea where any of the servers are, right, or what is actually running. So he wrote this thing to actually go and find all these servers and figure out what's on them, where they're running, and doing all this stuff. So if you're looking for something like that, that may be something for you. Try it. Let us know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, especially because he went to work for Microsoft, I'd be pleasantly surprised if it was still being worked on, still in development, all that stuff.
What are you trying to say, man?
I'm trying to say that Microsoft keeps it busy.
You're trying to say statistics parser needs to be updated? Yeah, I know that. Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, we need to get those segment eliminated things from Column Store in there because there's a massive rush to the Column Store mall. To the Column Store. Everyone's buying onto that one.
I'm not. I am. Yeah, let them go. Let them go.
All right, fine. Anyway, we're at 12:46.
Yeah, Cub baseball's already started, so we better get on so we can watch some Cub baseball.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week, hopefully, if I ever get some sleep. Adios.